We're going to start this one laughing our way into this episode. Dr. Glen's a little bit tired. He just came out of multiple consults. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just go film an episode.
Let's do it, man. I'm ready to do this. Let's do this.
So if he sounds a bit off, that is why. Today, we're going to be talking about a specific relationship. It comes from Love is Blind. We're going to talk about Shayne and Natalie. It's kind of cool. The Love is Blind season 2 just wrapped. This week, they just released the season finale, which is like a reunion where they all get together and talk about their experiences. And the cool thing about this show, for those that maybe aren't watching the show or whatnot, is that it actually gives us an opportunity to have these real interactions to sort of break down. And it's a popular show, so a lot of you have probably seen and heard what's going on. So it kind of gives us a chance to react and discuss.
Well, the other thing too is like it ties in the concepts that we're actually doing in our 12-week process.
Oh, fully.
And then we get to kind of break it down from that lens. So, I mean, it's just kind of exciting. Like it's entertaining, but at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, there's an educational component to this as well.
Yeah, we get to apply the method of therapy that we developed called core value focused therapy. We get to apply that model to kind of what you're seeing. And since these people have signed their lives away to be scrutinized and analyzed,
then we're just going to do it.
It's okay to do so.
Then hell yeah, let's do this, man.
Let's do this. Okay, we're going to get right into it, starting with welcome to 12-Week Relationships. This is your place for better relationships in weeks, not years. My name is Pye.
I'm Dr. Glen.
When we say relationships, by the way, we do mean all of them. So we start from the self and work on outwards to, yes, everything including love and whatnot. And that's what this episode is about. Well, dating and love and marriage and romance. And, before we get straight into it, I do want to mention that we will be releasing the newsletter soon. We're going to have a weekly newsletter. These are all handwritten emails. What we actually wanted is, number one, we want to deliver value to your inbox because you get a lot of spam, don't you?
Absolutely.
It's so annoying, dude. I feel like I'm unchecking things nonstop.
All the time.
So we want to value all of your guys' time. We don't want to send spam at all. We're handwriting each of these. Honestly, it's kind of like seeing excerpts from our books and our processes in a step-by-step format. And it's going to be delivered to your inbox each week. It'll be highly worthwhile. So sign up for the newsletter. And now, with our sponsor, ourselves covered, we're ready to get into this.
They're not covering this? Netflix is not covering this? What's going on?
Not as of yet. Not as of yet. Okay, so Love is Blind is a Netflix show where the premise, for those that haven't seen it, is these couples, they're selected to come and interact and to engage and communicate and date each other, but behind walls, so they can't actually see each other. And it's to see if love is truly blind, if they can fall in love and, whatnot. And today, we're looking at one specific relationship, Shayne and Natalie, which is a train wreck.
Yeah, they were the most interesting because they had, you can see some healthy-ish components and then you can see the trauma bonding, the whole mix.
You can see all of it. And you can see how, just all of it. So what we thought would be fun to do is actually, as we're watching the reunion episode and doing this little bit of a breakdown, we'll kind of call back to earlier interactions and whatnot from things that we see in the reunion, as well as stuff that we remember from the episodes. Before we actually start with the reunion piece, let's give a little bit of a backstory on kind of the early bonding between Shayne and Natalie. You remember that, right?
No, I do. So there were two people that he was interested in. One was Shayna, and it was a lot more playful, and they would flirt with each other, and they'd make like a lot of sexual comments. They would talk about sex.
I'm a very sexual person, so
Yes.
I would ideally every day.
Well, 5 times a day at least.
Okay. Oh my God, that was my answer before.
I don't know if you can keep up with me. That's what I worry about.
It was a lot more playful, and that's more who they were.
A lot more healthy.
It was a lot more healthier because it was more honest. And then with Natalie, it became this very serious. They talk about wounds.
My father passed away a few months ago.
Oh my gosh, that's so tough. I'm so sorry.
They would just go to these spaces that you probably shouldn't do or wouldn't do when you're first meeting somebody.
Yeah, from early interactions, you could see that not only were they trauma bonding, but based on things that Natalie said early on, you could tell that she's pretty insecure. She talks about she wants to be able to date without people, worrying about her appearance. She's self-conscious about her appearance. You could see and kind of feel she derives a lot of value from having another person that loves her. And Shayne is no different. He looks confident. He walks in. He kind of has this extroverted personality. but he is very self-conscious, and he talks about how much he appreciates praise and attention and words of affirmation. I mean, that is not only his love language, that is literally his emotional need. You know, it's different like if you appreciate words of affirmation, and this is a term that's kind of coined from Dr. Gary Chapman from his book, The 5 Love Languages. This is a kind of a way that we all show, you know, our love in different ways. Acts of service, you have words of affirmation, you have quality time, gifts. It's one thing to value words and compliments and praise, but to his degree shows a level of insecurity that's pretty high.
It's a wound, but trauma bond is they both had the similar insecurities. So
Yeah.
she, you know, once in those very intimate moments, he's like, please praise me, or like say something nice about me. He's really seeking that out. But on the flip side, you can tell like Natalie, she's not like that either. She's more like she insults him, puts him down because she wants him to follow him.
Do you think I'm pretty?
Are you fishing for compliments right now?
Mm-hmm.
Not really.
Honestly,
Yes.
it's so you gotta stop like doing that. Cause I mean, I'm
Okay,
trying to have a
okay.
fun conversation. You fish for compliments, like stop. Like have a normal conversation,
Okay,
making it
well,
much
I
harder
will.
than what it is.
Like you need to make sure that you accommodate me and make me feel all of my emotional needs are met. So they're both playing this very insecure space,
Yeah.
but they're doing it in different ways.
Yeah, and we're going to see that as we kind of step through this analysis. But even some of the early moments were pretty awkward. The main feeding that Shayne got early on was when she would say things like,
Your honesty gives me affirmation that this is a true and good connection. Oh my gosh, I'm like stumbling over my words.
It's fine.
or he even said like, they asked him, why do you like Natalie so much?
That she liked me.
Oh, because she likes me and that feeds my ego, you know? And for her, it's just having someone that loves her, just someone that is, you know, into her. So that's kind of the premise of that early connection. It was a full-on trauma bond. We didn't see, and granted, we do also have to say that we're seeing what the editors and what the producers want us to see, right? So we don't necessarily know the other interactions. But going into this relationship, it didn't seem like they knew a single thing about each other other than just the basics of what you do for work and the fact that we like each other.
And then there's a euphoria. I have this feeling that you are the one, and they're talking about building their life together when they don't know each other at all.
Yeah, they even got into that crazy fight. And that kind of, you know, things like that almost solidify this, right? Because there's this expectation that, well, relationships are difficult and whatnot. So they get into this fight. I think it was the very first episode. And we'll see the moment that kind of caused that in just a second. But Shayne walks off and they think that, you know, they're not going to talk again. But eventually the next day they come back to it. They start feeding each other again. And it's that up and down roller coaster that feeds this euphoria.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool to watch in the sense that when they're in their pods, you're in this euphoric state and they're living in this fantasy world because their wounds are coming out. But then once they're face to face and then they're trying to make the relationship work, you can see how like they just don't match at all.
Okay, so now let's actually go into the reunion episode. Let's watch this first piece where they're going to
his
address.
expressions.
Dude, his expressions are. I think there's some other stuff going on. Like it seems like Shayne probably has ADHD and there are a few other things that are. His expressions and emotions are just on his sleeve nonstop.
You know what he's feeling for sure.
You know, spot on. But anyway, Nick and Vanessa are going to ask him about the Shayne and Natalie name mistake.
A big moment for the viewers, I think, was when mistakenly thought Natalie was Shayna. But as opposed to apologizing for that mistake, your response was kind of turn around and just gaslight her.
Yeah, it's 100%.
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to point out here is the level of discomfort that is so clearly visible on his face. This has to do with, again, his value set, his insecurity. He values appearance, feeling good, feeling, you know, like he wants others to praise him. He wants others to, you know, to feed into that. He wants to be the good guy. So them pointing out a mistake publicly is why his body language is so skewed, because he doesn't want to be perceived this way at all. But this is actually a very innocent mistake. I mean,
It's not that, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. You're getting to know people, but yeah, a mistake can
it's
happen.
not at all.
Yeah.
Because they haven't even met each other. So he just walks into a pod assuming that it's Shayna when in reality it's Natalie. That's nothing.
No, that's true. But I mean, the premise is that I'm finding my wife, right? So this is my wife.
Yeah, I mean,
the premise is ridiculous. But you're right. Like, it's not a big deal.
It should have been a speed bump, but it's turned into this huge thing.
Huge deal. Yeah.
That was easily the biggest mistake I've made on the show. I played victim card right away, and I tried to defend myself, and that was, as a man, that's not what you want to do. But I definitely 100% regret, and I'm honestly ashamed the fact that, like, I just went into straight attack mode.
First, it's interesting. I mean, Nick recognized it for what it was. It was gaslighting, because he did. So basically, Natalie was upset. She says that she's upset. And then I forgot what Shayne said. It was something to the effect of like, what, do you think I'm a dick or something? And then he like lets it hang.
You are calling me a dick or something
because
like that. Yeah.
if you think I'm a dick, I think that's pretty messed up of you.
Yeah, that was
so
hilarious.
He like puts it out there and
Listen, if you think I'm a dick, I feel like that's kind of weird, no offense, but.
So yeah, he does kind of gaslight Natalie, not kind of, that's what he actually does, and kind of tells her you shouldn't be feeling this way and this isn't that big of a deal. And that is exactly what it is. It is interesting though. I didn't think he had this level of self-awareness to actually see that, to recognize that, to take ownership of it.
Yeah, it shows like his positive qualities. Like, he wants to be sincere, he wants to be honest, but it also shows his wounds. Like, he's a very wounded individual. Constant affirmations, constant security, and you're kind of seeing that teeter-totter back and forth of both.
One other thing in that interaction though was this was kind of their first, major conflict. Did you notice how Natalie was stonewalling?
Oh, for sure.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh.
That's her thing. Like, she's all about, you better show me that you love me at all times. Like, that's her wound coming out at all times. And she would play that with him. It would trigger his insecurities. Like, he would start chasing her. And that's where things would work out. You can see where she's laughing when he's like self-deprecating and putting himself down.
Yeah.
Or on the flip side, if he's insulting her in that way, because that's what she wants in intimacy.
Yeah, she has this need to maintain control.
And then you put yourself down and you do this kind of banter back and forth. That's intimacy to her.
Yeah.
Versus him, where it's more sexual and positive.
Yeah.
And then when they tried it just didn't work.
You're jumping ahead though, bro.
I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, you need to like slow it down.
I'll slow it down, man.
It's the fact that you're tired, isn't it?
I guess so.
End of the day. All right.
I really wish I would have just let her speak as she should have. Yeah, I mean, 100%.
We all did
It's just,
we all did it. I've done
Her
it.
face.
Every time Shayna is scrutinizing or judging,
it shows.
You know the term like looking down on someone, right? That term is specifically because the body language of like, this is what people used to do regularly, is look down on people, like nose up, looking down on you. Now, for the most part, most of us have evolved to a place where we don't show that anymore. But Shayna, anytime she's scrutinizing, nose is up, eyes are coming down at you.
It shows. It's a very demeaning expression.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And she's just, what are you about right now? Let me just analyze this.
Yeah. How dare you? Oh,
So
you
interesting.
disgust me. You disappoint me.
But again, kind of another reason why Shayne and Shayna might be a better fit. I mean, her emotions are right there on her face too.
Yeah, they have a lot of similarities. They have a better shot than Shayne and Natalie.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. Details of who they are and whatnot. But at least from basic interactions, they would have made a much more healthy relationship.
Yeah.
I'm just curious why you would take the approach of asking Natalie to be your girlfriend.
Yeah.
If you were still interested in exploring some other connections.
I got caught in the moment of the situation. I felt like I needed to, and I wanted to, like, I guess, assert her, like, this is where I stand and whatnot, and that's the way I did it, and I should not
Let's
have said
pause
that
there
either.
too. That was an interesting piece. If you are secure, I don't think you would need to, like, if you know that you're going to find someone, if you know that, like, I'm good, eventually the right person comes along, you don't feel the need to rush it. But I think he's feeling the need to rush it because he wants that sense of security.
Yeah, for sure. Like in this relationship, like if you watch them, he's always trying to chase her. And then she's always wanting to be chased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he does kind of, call her his girlfriend pretty quickly. And it was odd how they went into that big fight and then they came back right afterwards. And it was this perfect roller coaster makeup of, let's just get back to making each other feel good kind of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the trauma bond, right? It goes through
For
this
sure.
teeter-totter cycle of getting power, not having it, and just going through this up and down cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the whole point of the show is to honestly find your wife, and a lot of people literally stopped after like one person. I didn't like change my mind last minute or anything like that. No, I wanted to explore both situations because they were both completely different, and it was like I had to really figure out, which one, I guess. And that's not what I mean by that.
Can I just say something?
He's acting so apologetic when he doesn't really need to.
Because he's so worried about that appearance.
The appearance and Natalie and, oh, she's judging me for this. And he's just in his wound versus being in this healthier space of like, yeah, this is what I wanted to do in a healthy space, but I just made a mistake.
Yeah. Why do you think he kept going back to Natalie beyond just the trauma piece? I mean, if you were to go deeper, what is it specifically that he's connecting on?
So if you're in a trauma bond relationship, it feels euphoric.
Uh-huh.
It feels pleasurable. It feels like something has been solved inside of you. And then it feels like this mixture of like, there's like a conviction to it, but then there's also fear and anxiety. And it's just this whole combination of feelings that you feel.
Yeah. You know what I want to add to it?
Yeah.
Everything you said leads to the chase.
Yeah.
To feel like you have to work.
It's like a drug.
And him and Shayna, I think it was too easy. And
it was
he perceived
more calm.
that as like,
oh, this isn't a connection.
Yeah. If this is this easy, it must not be real.
Yeah. I mean, trauma basically means that you're viewing love as you're a wounded person and someone's going to heal your wound. You're not your wound. You're a total person. You have good qualities and you have pains that you need to work through. And if you can see it in that lens, you probably won't trauma bond.
I just wanted you to know that I do have deep feelings for you.
It's like we wasted so much fucking time the last 2 days not even talking. I wish you would have said that
No, I know.
days earlier. I felt the same way.
I took a back seat. I regret it.
Shayna, God.
This is where Shayne had an opportunity to actually make the right choice. I'm going to put a little bit of an analysis on this and you tell me like what you think. But he values other people's opinions of him and his appearance and his persona and this way he presents himself so much that you can see on his face how difficult this is for him because he feels like right now he has to turn down somebody. He's either going to hurt Shayna or he's going to hurt Natalie. And that's what's difficult for him to process is it's going to change the way that they look at him. He doesn't want this. I feel like he ended up saying no to Shayna because of perception, because of, well, I already am this close to Natalie. That's the connection that I'm going to, if I have to hurt anybody, it's going to be this one. And I don't think he's consciously thinking through it this way. I think that he just feels like that is the more correct thing to do because perception wise, I'm already committed. So I've already said that this is my girlfriend. So I'm going to stick to that. I'm going to maintain that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you're saying it very nicely. Like you're a nice person. I just feel like that's his trauma bond. He picked Natalie because that's his woundedness. And I'm the desperate one. And please affirm for me. And please, tell me that you care about me. Whereas like in this scenario, like he's really showing who he is. Like he's upset. He's angry. Why didn't you tell me this? There's no like insecurity there. And then she's responding like, okay, I'm sorry. He's being more himself. And he's not recognizing like, oh, this is actually a better, healthier space for me to be in.
I agree. I think that what I'm saying though is that he's going towards the other place because there's a comfort in that because he's not the bad guy. If he sticks with the person that he committed to, he's not the bad guy. I don't think he's making the right decision.
Oh, I agree.
But that's what he's playing through in his head.
I see what you're saying. So like on a more conscious level, like he's saying, I have to do this.
Yes.
I have to play this out.
Because of the values that he has, it's going to change the way people look at him, the way he's perceived on the show. If he has already said that this person's my girlfriend and now I switch to another person, I think the pressure of all that is what pushing him back towards, again, that trauma bond. And and it plays into the other stuff too. We've already talked about these deep things. We have these connections, it's euphoric. It's all the other stuff too. But I think that's a big piece of this.
Do you think he would have chose Shayna if this didn't happen?
I think had he continued interacting with Shayna, I also think this is Shayna's bad because she, in her value set, she kind of said to Natalie that everything's okay and she's happy for them, but that's not true. She was unhappy and kind of, talking behind her back and doing all sorts of stuff. So I think that there's also issues on that side of her not being upfront, not being direct, and then letting this time go by. Had they spent that time interacting, I do think that there might have been a much stronger connection. And yeah, I do think, I think he would have ended up with Shayna.
If he had more time.
If he had more time, especially if they were engaging and interacting in person, because then he would have seen, Natalie's discomfort in praise and in simple things that he really appreciated.
And then they would have been a lot more flirty together. Shayna
Of course.
And Shayne. Yeah.
Shayna and Shayne would
For
have been
sure.
like playing into it the whole time.
No, for sure.
How did it feel watching that on TV for the first time?
Like betrayed by both Shayne and Shayna, quite honestly. The fact Shayne said, if, you told me 2 days earlier, it could have been, potentially different. That's not something, it's not something
Okay,
he was telling
pause.
me.
First, they do actually mention, by the way, how did that happen? Because he was supposed to be going into that pod to propose to Natalie. Shayna just shows up in the pod. So clearly this is producer manipulation right now. And it is unfortunate because I don't think Shayne's a bad guy at all. But the way that this is kind of set up is sort of to make it look as though he's been, like, he wouldn't be in this situation in real life with leading on 2 women. You know what I mean?
No, that is true. Like they're setting him up to be like the fall guy.
Well, the premise of the show is that if you don't have people interested in you, you get kicked off. So the goal is to get as many people as possible, or to connect with, if he can have genuine connections with and explore, he's right. But that also makes you look like a bad guy when in the real world, you're not going to do that.
No, he's just exploring his options.
Yeah.
He's trying to find out like who's the right person for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really the only thing that's messed up in reality that's happening here is that the producers put Shayna in there and that she's late in saying what she should have said earlier.
No, it's true. And then if they told him, oh, Natalie's going to be in there, that's a really messed up thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, and when they actually say it, you'll see that Vanessa, they ask the question, how did this happen anyway? And Vanessa just kind of like, we're not sure, but let's move on to the next subject. Come on.
Come on, Vanessa.
Come on.
Yeah.
But I think with you, Shayna, what you had told me was you walked in saying you were supportive of our relationship and you used to like him, and that was it. So I just think seeing that and feeling like you were dishonest was, really tough.
I'm sorry for that. No, I am.
That's the only piece there that was messed up, was Shayna basically hiding the truth,
Yeah, she should have been more upfront with Natalie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of, I genuinely don't feel like Shayne did anything wrong in terms of exploring those relationships and doing that. If he did commit to Natalie without her knowing that he was exploring something else, you could say that, yes, that is messed up, but it's also a TV show.
I mean, can we talk about like what's going on with Shayna right now, or are we going to do that later?
You talk, bro.
Yeah, because she was proposed to by that other guy.
Oh yeah, this is actually very messed up on Shayna's part.
Yeah, so she said yes to somebody, and then she went into the pod, and then confessed her love to Shayne.
Yeah.
And then backstabbed Natalie all at the same time. So she's causing all this chaos and triangles.
Why are you asking me if you can? You're the doctor here, bro. You say whatever you want to say.
No, because we're talking about like different splices in the different sections.
No, you're totally right. If there's anything crazy going on,
Yeah.
it's that she already said yes to, what's his name? To Kyle, was it?
To Kyle.
She said yes to Kyle, and now she's telling, but yeah, we got to save them for another one, because that's
another
big one too.
episode, yeah.
But yeah, she's already said yes to someone, and now she's sitting there, unbeknownst to Kyle, telling Shayne that, she has these feelings.
Confessing her love and...
So that's the really messed up piece.
So that shows her chaotic nature.
Yeah.
Given, yeah.
I literally thought I was gonna come into a room proposing to my girl, and someone else came into that room, and you literally get punched right in the face.
Yeah.
Okay. No one knows what it feels like going in there, and it's like, my whole mindset was focusing on proposing to Natalie the whole time, and then I hear Shayna's voice. I'm not mad about the situation, but it's like it was my day with Natalie.
Shayne's absolutely right. Like, he's being crucified for something that is really a producer's game.
Oh, agreed.
And yeah, he's going to react and wear his emotion on the sleeve, and he could have done it better, sure. But this is a messed up situation that would never occur in real life. Another interesting thing happens here. Natalie does a really good job of kind of making sure that Shayne bears the majority of the blame in this. But she has a lot of it on her own plate. And he even gets to a place where he's like,
he points it out.
Can you just take part of the ownership?
Yeah.
Can you just, I'll take most of it. Can you take some of it? That is a very, like, that conversation of Shayne's honestly made me feel like he's a lot more healthy than I perceived him to be initially. That's a very big thing to say.
He's very self-aware. Like, look, I'll be accountable, but you need to be accountable too. It takes two to play this game.
Yeah. And Natalie's
she has a
highly
really
effective.
hard time doing that.
Yeah, she's a good manipulator.
She's a good manipulator. And then that's where like that control thing comes into play. Like, take responsibility. You better prove to me that you care about me. That she constantly does that when they're interacting together.
Yeah. Now they're going to go on to another couple. We're going to come back to them towards the end of the reunion. This is where I want to segue into kind of showing those things, because this is where I feel like Shayne kind of got an unfair take on this whole thing. Natalie and Shayne, from the beginning, as soon as they met and as soon as they started interacting with each other, when they're in Mexico, basic conversations where Shayne is looking for what he appreciates and values most. Compliments, praise. I love you. You're so sweet. I love your eyes. Oh my gosh, honey. He wants those words. She refuses to give it to him at any
She won't
point.
give it to him. Yeah.
And she does the opposite.
She insults him.
Yeah.
Just pour me first and I'll give you a compliment.
That's a lie, but I'll allow it. 'Cause I'm a nice guy. See, I'm not egotistical. I'm a nice guy.
You're a piece of shit.
You're being a little mean.
Really?
This isn't to say like, I want to speak plainly and simply. I've spent 20 years in Chinese and Asian culture. I speak multiple Chinese languages, and I do feel like race plays a significant part in our relationships in ways that we don't really understand. It's cultural. It is very Chinese, very Asian to kind of playfully sort
Put
of
people down.
Yeah, put people
like
down.
it's like the self-deprecating culture. Definitely, for sure.
Like, so, you know, tell me I'm pretty. Oh, I think you're ugly, or whatever it might be.
But I'm just kidding after. Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But he doesn't get that, because culturally that is, it's a dig. It's not, he doesn't make any sense. It doesn't compute. And you can see it in each of their interactions.
No, I agree. But I mean, I would say, like, definitely I think culture plays a point, but I feel like she does it more to try to dictate the terms of what she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely there's a cultural component there for sure, though.
I'm not saying that that's not part of it.
Yeah.
But that also is another cultural play, because in, you know,
American,
the most common stereotypical Asian husband and wife dynamic, the phrase would be happy wife, happy life, right? I can't tell you how many times I've heard that.
Yeah.
And in so many households, the woman very much dictates and controls the power dynamic, from finances to a lot of different things.
Sure.
Now, I'm not saying that this is the case for every single, you know, one, but I am saying that in this situation, wherever she learned it, Natalie wants the power dynamic. She's using what she knows culturally to keep it, which is like these playful digs and jabs and, you know, not giving you what you want and that kind of stuff. And it's completely opposed to the way that he sees the world.
Yeah, and then, you know, it covers what we talk about in the 12 weeks: emotional control, which is an unhealthy core value. That's Natalie. And then Shayne is emotional safety. He's seeking security, and then that wound together is bringing them together.
Yeah. So that happens multiple times. It's funny because, it happened when they were like, they can't even talk about sex without it being like,
the sex issue is a big deal.
that was a funny one.
The flirting, they can't even flirt together.
Can't
Like
flirt.
it doesn't match.
I didn't fall asleep last night.
It was late. It was like 12:30.
I could have back boots a little longer, but
What does that mean?
you ever heard that saying before?
No.
And again, that goes back to, again, inside of, there are certain things that are important to understand. Interracial relationships, they can totally work. They can be beautiful and wonderful and fantastic. And I don't want anybody to get what I'm saying wrong. I want people to understand that when going into it, you have to realize that even though we're both American, or even though we both grew up in the same country, those cultural dynamics still play a part, because you grew up watching two sets of parents.
Absolutely. I mean, cultural humility, like not just seeing through your own lens of culture, but appreciating other people's cultures is hugely important.
Correct. So inside of many, and I would say most Chinese, Asian households that are traditional, praise and affection and you're doing great and you're wonderful, that is unheard of.
No, agreed. No, that is true. So that has to be factored in as well.
Yeah, the communication that you see is more like, why couldn't that be better?
That should also have been a discussion, like on Natalie's side or Shayne's side,
Absolutely.
like, hey, culturally, this is what we do. And they could have had those conversations, but it just never really happened.
This is where I feel like the editors, along with Natalie, they got a good rap in this whole thing because none of this is explained. Natalie doesn't tell it to Shayne. She doesn't say anything about this is the way that I culturally grew up. She doesn't explain anything of this. She just keeps on going with it. Then when he reacts to it, they just show the reactions because it makes for good television, right?
Yeah.
But their playfulness is not playfulness.
It's not.
In fact, do you remember what Jarrett said when where he was like, if any couple makes it,
They're going to work out.
If I was to say that somebody would make it, probably say Shayne and Natalie.
I heard the potato thing.
But I mean, like in that example though, because he was making fun of Natalie. He's like, oh, there she was rolling in the boat.
Yeah.
And then she was chasing him. That is like attractive to her, like this give and take of like jabbing each other.
Yeah.
That's how like intimacy is for her versus like, oh, you're so hot and let's make love. And what are you wearing? Which is what he wanted. They're totally, completely opposite.
That is part of her sense of intimacy was that playful banter thing. But she has a very fine line that he would cross where he would say something jokingly, whether it's sexual, kissing, whatever, and she would get upset.
She can't handle it.
No.
She can't. And that's where the control piece comes into play.
Yeah.
And then that's the teeter-totter, right? Like you're going to follow my rules or I'm going to follow yours. And they're just going back and forth.
That is hyper manipulative because if you are, if in some cases it's okay to share and to have this playful banter, but in other cases it's not, it creates this rule set that's very difficult to understand. So all of this makes for a very complicated dynamic with Natalie, which is completely outside of Shayne's understanding.
No, for sure. Like if Natalie were healthier, she'd be like, okay, I don't understand him. So let me get to know him and let me try to figure what's important to him. But she doesn't do that. It's you better show me that you're loyal to me and you're going to do this for me no matter what.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because in the first episode, I kind of got the impression that Natalie might have been more healthy than a lot of them. And I still think that she is in a lot of ways. But as I saw her not recognizing what she was doing to Shayne, I thought, okay, she's either not as self-aware and healthy as I thought, or she's straight up manipulative.
Well, I mean, once again, this is what happens in relationships. At a distance, people can be really healthy, but the more intimate you become, more of your issues come out. So you get to see both of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this continues. We get these rough interactions with basic things turning into these fights with Natalie and Shayne. And I guess that leads up to probably what they're going to discuss next.
But can we talk about that?
Can you make sure that your mic, because you're turning away from the mic a lot when you're talking. So pull it away and then talk towards me.
This way?
Yeah.
Okay.
And aim it right at, remember how we did that adjustment last time? So point it.
This way.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when you're talking, talk toward me.
Okay.
The fact that why was that meeting even a thing, and why did that even happen?
I wish I knew. I would be able to.
Yeah, whose
tell you
idea
that.
was that?
We're totally.
Speaking
of,
Well, you can cut that in earlier because we mentioned it already.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. You're holding my mother's engagement ring.
Okay. Skip this whole thing because this is all. So let's just go to the end when they come back to him.
Natalie and Shayne. So we all saw that there was a big blow-up fight the night before your wedding that ultimately ended your engagement. It was after a lot of drinking at the bachelorette and the bachelor party. What happened? What happened that night that you guys want to share that ended this fairy tale process for both of you?
Everyone kind of has like a breaking point during this whole experiment.
If you have
Like,
something,
the pressure, all of this
Glenn,
is on
just
you.
tell him to pause and go with it.
Obviously,
I was going to save
you're getting married
what I'm
that night.
what I'm
Like,
thinking is I was going to save my piece for after they kind of
just
explain.
like had a moment where like, oh shit, like, I don't know. Obviously, I wish it didn't go down that way. I mean, trust me, as an idea, I don't think about that fucking night and go over it in my head differently. 100%.
you guys seen the wedding episode?
Mm-hmm. Did you see it?
Yeah.
You saw the wedding episode, no?
The wedding. Yeah, I saw the wedding
thought,
episode. Yeah, I saw that.
He said like, "I hate you" or something.
Yeah, I hate you. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Did you say things you didn't want to say?
Yeah, of course.
But it was how you felt.
No, not really. I guess it was an emotional reaction.
He's again so apologetic. He feels so bad. You can tell that Shayne's beating the hell out of himself for saying what he said, right? But there was a lot of truth to the way that he was feeling. He might have been drunk. He might have went too far. He could have said it better. He could have been more mature. You can say all of those things for sure. But there is also truth to what he was feeling. Natalie is very bad for Shayne. Quite possibly one of the worst people he could choose for himself.
No, I agree. And it shows the power dynamics where like Natalie always has the power. She's dictating the terms and he's always trying to please her and trying to get her affections. It's not a healthy dynamic.
No, and once again, he's being made to pay for it. And Natalie's about to go into how hurtful it was to her and how everything was fine up until that moment. But that's not true.
Yeah, she was a participant in what took place. And she, you know, it'd be one thing if she was like, yeah, if you volunteer information and say, yeah, this is what I brought, so, you know, so on and so forth, let me hear your side. And then there can be a concession that brings authenticity, but she's really not, because she'll just shut down and just expect you to apologize. And then she just leaves you hanging.
Yeah, she stonewalls, gets control, expects you to apologize, come back to her.
Okay, cool. Then I'll take you back. And it's this whole power dynamic, which a healthy person wouldn't want to play.
No. And if she were taking ownership of it, there was, I mean, any level, how many memes and things are going on the internet of people watching Shayne's body language, right?
Yeah.
No, as intelligent as Natalie is, she has to recognize that what she's saying is actually hurting the man. So tell me, world that's listening to this, is Natalie, or the, you know, few thousand people, is Natalie as intelligent as she seems, which I believe her to be? Because if she is, she's willfully choosing to do this. Or do you think she's not as intelligent and self-aware as we think she is, and she's completely unaware of the manipulation that she's doing? Because my vote, she knows.
You think so?
I think so.
I think she knows that she's manipulating on some level, but in her mind, she believes that that's what love is.
I agree. I don't think that it's like, I'm going to make this guy hurt. But at the same time, she's not stopping to acknowledge what it is. She's not stopping to recognize her side of it. She's not taking ownership for that piece, nor she doesn't even think that there's anything for her to change in this situation. She thinks that her behavior is completely normal. And so I should correct that. I'm not saying that she's willfully trying to maliciously hurt Shayne. I'm saying that there's no part of her that's taking ownership.
But that's what most people do when they're in their trauma bond. So the person that wants emotional control, they want all the power. They just want you to apologize and do what they say. And then as long as you do that, we're in love.
Yeah.
And in her mind, this is completely normal. But at a distance, it's like, no, this is crazy.
Yeah.
No one wants to sign up for this.
So now watch, because you're going to see as she kind of just goes and, you know, thinks that her behavior is completely normal, that it's his reactions that cause this.
How was that night for you, Natalie?
I mean, it sucks because I feel like that night changed everything. I truly believe that he is like remorseful of it. Like he has apologized a million times. For us, it was kind of a wake-up call that like, wow, we have like big issues to work through and maybe we're not ready for marriage.
This bothered me to watch. This is master manipulation. From the long pauses to the tears. It's not that I believe that those are fake.
Yeah.
It's that this is such a well-learned act, that this for her is real. But everything she points back to is, I know he's sorry for it. It's just that night, everything changed. That's not true. It was a train wreck from the beginning.
No, I mean, definitely like, it shows her wounds. Like everything is a circumstance away from being disaster, right? You always have to prove love to her at every single time. But in her mind, she feels it's normal. But the other thing is, you know, she's a Korean lady, born from a Korean mother, Korean guilt thing, never admit anything. And then other people have to take the blame for it. And you should just do it.
That's the crazy part to me, because nowhere along the way is she talking about, I said things that would make Shayne feel a certain way. I didn't realize that those things were important. I didn't realize how impactful they were.
As far as she would go, it's like we, and that's true. There's we components, but you're right. She never says, this is what I did wrong.
No.
This is where I made mistakes. And then if you do that, now you're making a concession. You're reaching in the middle and you're trying to build a connection with that person.
Yeah.
But what she's doing, you're right. It's just very stonewall, emotional distance. You take the blame for it. You need to apologize. And then she just kind of sits back and lets you suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that.
I mean, if Shayne, if you're listening to this,
you got some healthy things going on.
You're
man.
right, brother. This was a 50-50 thing. Your 50% was the way that he felt, the way that Shayne felt was 1000% on point. His issue is just in the way that he communicates and processes emotion. Work on that. But for her, that 50% was in not recognizing who she's with, what this person values, and continuing to poke and to prod and to control and to manipulate, and then to not even recognize it. And I would say from this, she has a lot more work to do than Shayne does.
Yeah. And then once again, it's a trauma bond dynamic. She's the one with all the power, control. You take the blame. He's the one taking all the blame. Okay, I'll do whatever you say. So they're both on this same teeter-totter of trauma.
Yeah.
We hadn't worked through all of our problems. And I'm not saying that you have to work through every problem for marriage, but I think that was a big one, was like the way we communicate with each other.
The way that we communicate with each other. This is the most common misconception. The problem is how we communicate with each other. No. The problem is the underlying values are completely different. So it matters not the words that you use. Those words will always be wrong.
Agreed. Yeah, it's like it was honest, and what was coming out was the truth, and that's why it wasn't working out.
Yeah, they could finagle the words. They could learn how to better communicate. They could learn all those things, which is what a typical process would have them do.
But it doesn't change.
It will not change anything.
Yeah, they're not a match.
No.
Outside of their wounds.
I'm taking accountability for what happened that night, but I mean, there was a reason also why I got to that point too. And you still have, you're kind of like pushing on the rug and making it seem like I'm like almost like the words that I use, like they just didn't come out of nowhere. So it was 100% my fault. I take most of the blame, yes, but like you're sitting there like saying, I just this and that. It's like, so you don't feel bad for anything like you've done, like no apologies or anything.
This is where Shayne once again steps up and surprises me at his level of self-awareness and emotional health. He's 1000% right.
No, agreed. He's making really valid points, and he's working himself out of his own trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she doesn't at any point of this conversation actually recognize all those jabs and digs and controls and manipulations. And she just says, I know there might have been like, I did something to push you that way, to make you feel frustrated. Again, it's not I
ownership.
take ownership of, this is what I said. I shouldn't have said those things. I'm sorry for this. This is a beautiful job of, again, kind of manipulating to play the victim.
Yeah, like it's spinning it, but it's still your fault.
Yeah.
The majority is still your fault. Like, no, I take accountability. However, it's still on you.
And it's not. These two share equal ownership in both of them selecting bad partners and everything that led up to this place.
But then now you're seeing the teeter-totter switch where he's like establishing some assertiveness and control, and she's starting to backtrack.
Yeah.
So this is how that trauma bond dynamic plays out.
Until if they were together in a relationship, it would get to this place when she's starting to do this, crying, remorseful, then it would flip again, and he would say, it's okay, honey. And she would
start flipping it back. And then that's how you know you're in this trauma bond dynamic.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you.
I feel like we've talked about this because we have. Like, I obviously apologize for making you feel like you weren't good enough. Because I feel like you were more than enough.
This is the last thing that I wanted to stop on. When she says, I feel like you are more than good enough, I feel like Natalie is correct in that you're more than good enough for someone else. But Shayne is not good enough for her, not in the way that she needs. Shayne is good enough as a person, but not for her, and not vice versa.
Yeah, to fulfill her wound, he's not good enough.
Well, and just from a personality standpoint, right?
I don't know, but I feel like she might mean that. She might mean that. Like, yeah, you were good enough to me.
I know she means it, but she's wrong, is what I'm saying. She means it because she wants to be nice. She wants to be kind. She wants to, she doesn't want Shayne to walk away feeling like he's not enough, but she's wrong. Because from a personality standpoint, there were so many instances, like they talked about their wedding, right? And Shayne's like, I just want a old-fashioned fountain. And she's like, what? That is atrocious style and taste and whatnot. She talks early on about how she wants someone to have good style. And she says that she shouldn't care about that, but she's wrong again. You should care about that.
Oh, the jean shorts.
She values first impressions. She values, appearance. She values all these different things that she's brushing aside. And frankly, if they were to create a relationship, if they were to stay together, all the awkward things that Shayne would say joking around in public would piss her off nonstop.
I see what you're saying.
The things that he does when he shows up and takes over a scene would piss her off nonstop. The energy that he has in the morning when they wake up would piss her off nonstop.
I see what you're saying. In her core value set, he wouldn't measure up.
No.
He would not be good enough. If she were in a healthy space and had her core values and compared it and like, okay, Shayne, do you measure up? The answer would be no. I hear what you're saying.
And for Shayne, it's the exact same. She wouldn't measure up to him.
No, it goes both ways.
So
the only thing left is their trauma bond that drew them together.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
You got anything else for them?
No, man, that's pretty clear. That's pretty clear.
Did we break it down enough?
That's like, we cover trauma bond a lot on this one because
Well, this is such an interesting one because there's so many dynamics at play, from the social side and the social pressure of this to the cultural side to the, personal trauma side. One thing that we actually forgot to mention was, I'll bet that one of the reasons Shayne stayed in the relationship as long as he did, the reasons why he kept trying, was because of a lot of the praise that he was receiving from the outside, from the friends on the show. We want it to work. We want you guys to be good. And if anyone's going to make it, it's going to be these two. And how many people online are rooting for them? That feeds Shayne's need. So that's another reason why he's going to stay. But it's staying in a relationship that is fundamentally, at its core, a disaster.
Agreed. And it's just feeding his wound, which is not love. And they were never going to work out no matter what they did.
No.
Yeah. They just don't match. Personality-wise, intimacy-wise, they just do not match.
No. This would be, it would be that nonstop roller coaster. If they went for it, it would be that nonstop, up and down.
Hours of arguing, back and forth. It would just be a very unhappy relationship.
All right. Well, I think that concludes our analysis of Shayne and Natalie. We hope y'all enjoyed. If you guys did, well, there's a couple things y'all can do. Number one, we'd love for you to go to the podcast on iTunes. You can leave us a review. It's completely free to do this. We would appreciate it if it's a 5-star review, because if it's not,
5 stars are good.
If you got some critique, just send it to us in a DM on Instagram. You don't need to write it there for the publics. And in the meantime, if you guys want to subscribe to the newsletter, you can do that at 12weekrelationships.com. If you're looking for one-on-one coaching, you can also join the wait list to meet with Dr. Glen. And I think you just booked up all your availability for April, so we're looking a little bit further forward,
May
right?
now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're into May.
So we're kind of working on the wait list, and we'll have online and other types of like group programs available. But bear with us, be patient. We're really stoked on where this is going, and we thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you.
Peace.